So apparently, some young Republicans thought it'd be funny to text each other some Nazi jokes and big time praises of Hitler because nothing sells patriotism like pretending you're a 1940s war criminal. I've always said that. So, but now before we all lose our beer over this, let's remember the Nazi movement, it's never really gone away. It just changed its clothes, joined prison gangs, and became punks in the political world.
Yeah, these kids, I kind of understand it more in prison. Like Jack, you've seen, there's a lot of people like with big swastika tattoos on in prison, and basically what it's just they're just saying I'm a racist is really what it comes down to. But in prison, these guys, a lot of these guys are dangerous guys, and really by wearing that, they're kind of opening themselves up because they're flying their Nazi, their Nazi swastika, and so there's some tough guys wearing them in prison, but these kids. I don't really think they have any idea the stuff they're espousing. We grew up in a different era, Jack, and there was nothing to glorify about the Nazis.
Well, it's ridiculous if you think about it. You go back to the prison thing you talked about. Those guys were tough in there, but they still it espoused they were racist right up front. You knew it. There was
Yeah.
no. That's how they are. That's how they live, and that's how a lot of them end up dying too. But these guys here, these are a bunch of punks, and they're not just kids. This is what gets me about this. Our vice president, one of our favorite people, Mr. Genius comes out and his response is, well, it's just a bunch of kids, boys will be boys. I'm paraphrasing, but he says, oh, this is a quote. It's what kids do. Bullshit. My kids wouldn't do that. I mean, my kids also understood what happened during World War II because they learned about it. Apparently, he missed that year in class. So to think this is cool because these guys aren't just praising Hitler. They're talking about gas chambers and using these things. So that's what
Jack,
kids do.
yeah, it's I don't really know if they even teach it in school anymore much. I don't know what they're teaching in school. But they're not teaching this. I mean, my dad was on the beach in Normandy fighting fascism, Hitler, and actually he had pictures when I was a little kid. I have told you about concentration camps that they went and freed up in Poland and stuff. And this stuff is horrific. And I don't really know if I would like to think they don't actually believe what they're espousing. They just think it's cool to do it because it isn't cool though, youngsters. It just isn't.
But the problem is, it's just we're not talking about teenage kids here, like
Yeah.
they want you to believe. It's people in their some guy about 40 years old. He's the head of these organizations out there. I, ladies and gentlemen, was in the Young Republicans, and guess what? This never came up in conversation. We would nobody and don't say, "Well, you're an older guy." Goddamn right, I'm an older guy. But there's a lot of young people out there, and there are some who have moved away from this to belong to the same organization. Those states are saying that's crap. That's not us. That has the Nazi creed has nothing to do with Republican ideology. Of course, neither is our current president, vice president, or current Republican people do either. But the Nazi thing, and yet now you can actually bring it into freedom of speech. I mean, there's an argument there, but is it?
And you were bringing this up about this guy, this other guy that kind of co-signed it with him. He is. I thought he was some kind of representative or something, a state
Yeah.
representative or something like that. And and he should know better. Uh, all of us should know better. And that's why calling Trump Hitler. I'm not on board with that either. Do I agree? Do I agree with everything he does? Hell no. Does that mean I think he's Hitler? No, because Hitler did a lot more for his economy than Trump did. Uh, I, yeah. I mean, we've talked about this. And, Hitler. There was a reason they followed him blindly. It was because they were in just a morass of poverty and everything, and no economic engines driving them. And Hitler changed all that, and that's how he got people to sign on. I don't know why these people are signing on with it when most of these kids probably have led a pretty good life. They're probably down in their parents' basements, not paying any bills as we speak.
Probably. I mean, and they can sit there and go back to this, and this is the argument be freedom of speech thing. But when freedom of speech, I don't think really goes as far. My understanding is when you're talking about committing violence against people, and that's what that entire movement was about. I mean, the final solution, the entire movement was about killing the Jewish population, everything about it. And I think anyone who's so ignorant to think, oh no, it's just some funny little shit we're putting out there and stuff. And it's the same thing. Now, this is brought up too. They say that some Democratic politician has made some comments about doing away with one of his, and here's my response to that. Shouldn't have done that either. But politicians, these guys out there, that's all they do. They would attack anyone to get their spot. Both sides do it. It's just ridiculous. All the manipulation, all the lying, all the crap that goes on. Uh, but as individual groups representing an organization like the Republican Kids River, speaking about, well, it's mass extermination is what it would be. That's what the Nazi thing was. Am I wrong?
No, 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 that was it. And I never did understand it because actually the Jews did a lot for Germany. They were some of their best scientists. I never understood a lot of that. He was more of afraid of them than anything. He didn't think they were lesser. He couldn't. They were their best scientists. They're Nobel, they're Nobel laureates, and said most of them were Jewish during the Germany's rise. So I never did quite understand it, but I think it's more of a fear thing, and maybe that's a thing here. Maybe they're afraid of, they're afraid of what I don't know. And so they're jumping on something, a belief, an ism that they don't know anything about.
Well, you go back to the prison thing, and some of the ones that I saw that got tatted up with the Nazi thing and stuff were white dudes, and they were afraid, just like you said. So they wanted to join in, and they wanted to join this group, or they were forced to join in with this group or something. That happened, and I know that, and so they belong there, and it's a self-preservation thing. Am I saying that's right? No, prison's a different world. If you want to live, sometimes those guys have to do shit they would never do out here, but they do that out here. Self-preservation from what? I saw the one kid who did this. His self-preservation ought to be from pizzas. He's a fat kid up there, and I'm just going to lay right there. He was yakking about that. What? These guys have never faced anything like guys in prison, or definitely, but people in Europe were facing during that time period. And they're out acting like they're knowledgeable about this. And then you've got people in authority saying, oh, hell. No big deal. And that's the problem in this country right now. A lot of people feel the same way about what's going on in Washington, D.C. They want to avoid it. No big deal to me. I'm going to stay away from it. See how
Yeah.
that goes in a couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of people are putting their head in the sand about this issue. And you brought up a good point about the prison. Like I didn't have to go through it, but in California back in the day, they call it gladiator school. It's the youth authority. Well, when you're a young kid and they're putting you in, and they put a lot of them in when they're 17 into the prisons and stuff back then. And you're right, they either were forced to join or they're going to have trouble. And I don't really think a lot of them believe it in their core, but it was a protection device to join a gang, and you don't have much of a choice. So I get that, and I can sympathize with that. And then maybe and then if you're in prison long enough, you're not getting educated. You're and the conversations in state prisons are they're not scintillating to say the least. But these kids, I just know that they're kind of privileged. I don't know that, but I get that feeling. And for people to turn away and say it's not that big of a deal, they're wrong. That's what they said in the 30s, and it became a horrible big deal.
But one of the things about the freedom of speech thing and the difference here than in prison is we have freedom of speech, and it's a right that you practice, and it's not just to advocate violence. That's the one thing I brought up earlier about that. And I don't know what the end result is for these guys in this speech. They want to talk about people are all we made Charlie Kirk a new god, you know. And let's face it, I'm the first one to tell you, I really hadn't followed that guy at all. And then I started reading his stuff he wrote, and I thought, what the hell? Why are people telling me what a great guy this guy is? He was a right-wing religious fanatic who was women are not supposed to hold a position of power, yet his wife is going to hold one. That's different, because it's, again, Don't just do what I tell you. Don't do what I'm gonna do. And so that's all okay. And he was a racist. That's read it. And so, but he had a right to say what he said there. He was not advocating violence, and that I
Never,
read.
no, no, no. He was always anti-violence, and I'll give
Yeah.
him that. It's funny you bring up the fact that they want his wife to continue on as the leader of what is it, Turning Point. And it's funny, I guess now that she's not a wife, she can be a person. Because if
Oh,
you're
that's a good idea. Yeah.
that's
Good
the
idea.
part you miss. Now that she doesn't have a husband, she's allowed to be a person. When if
Yeah.
she was a wife, no, no, she needed to be a wife.
So does
She
that
didn't
mean in
need
the
to run.
Bible then it should have been
Oh,
Adam and that other person?
Adam and his significant other.
Yeah, Adam is that would have been okay. 'Cause then Eve could have had a position of power too when if Adam died. We should
Yeah,
look that up because they and religious people, as we all know, I'm not one of, will change things around. So there's a perfect example right there. They always make this joke, Adam and Steve. That's why it's not gay. Well, if they're going to do this for her, isn't that right for all people?
it's exactly. If she can run a business, why can't every woman? And why did she have to become a widow before she was qualified for that position? It's
Exactly.
bullshit, misogynistic, and it started with a bunch of old dudes that wore dresses deciding what the rules were for the world back in 600 at the Council of Nicaea, and it's gone through ever since. I'm still surprised how many women. I mean, they must really hate the Democrats, and I understand that they're so mealy mouthed, and
Yeah.
wishy washy, and I get it, and but it seems like to me, I have no idea how any women support really Trumpism in general because it's misogynistic in its tendencies. I mean, he gives them it's I don't know. I don't get it.
It's completely. And we talk about this, and people listen to us probably think, "Oh, you guys, we came from prison where there was more order and function than there ever is in this stuff mess right here." But my point back then with Charlie Kirk too was the fact that he had a right to say all those things because he didn't say go out and we should practice what Hitler said and put people in gas chambers. These guys did. That's the difference. You can't. That kind of stuff's ridiculous. And you're right that uh, these people, the religious people, the political people, and I do not know why women can follow any of this and in good conscience. If they have daughters, ask yourself a question. Would you want your daughter to meet and date someone and marry someone like Donald Trump? Think of it. Think of it.
When we grew up, Jack, people wanted their kids to grow up. I want to be president. No, no, you don't want. No, we don't
You
want you
don't
to be
get
like
it.
this
You don't
president.
want to
No.
be president. And look what you got to be like. And just think about it. Like back then, they said, uh, there used to be a thing when we were in school. Remember that said, "This is the country where any young boy can grow up to be president." And back then, that was a thing right before the Pledge of Allegiance. Now whether you'd like to pledge allegiance or not. Now, if they say any boy can grow up to be president, you probably got 3/4 of class. But no, no, I'm
Yeah.
good with no. Skip me on that. And
No.
how many? If Donald Trump was a qualifier, how many people would want their son to be president if you had to act like that? I mean, how? What the hell? I,
And it's and deep in their hearts, the real MAGAs, that they have to know it. I think they're starting to slide a little bit out of there. I don't like to pick on a president. We want him to do good. We want our
yep.
economy to blow up. We want it to do great. That helps us. That helps us get our business going. And I'm rooting for him. But why the fuck he get so sidetracked with all this sideshow shit when he should be focusing on just trying to make our lives better. And I don't, and I'm still rooting for it. I still have some hope that this whole thing comes together, but it's not looking too good lately.
Well, I root for the right thing, and I have a hard time rooting for him because I don't really think he knows what's going on anymore. I don't. If he does, he's. I just don't see how he could. But and we've discussed this before. I've always wanted every president to be the best president ever,
Ever.
and I always believed since I was very young, and that every person who ran for president did it because they really believed, despite all the politics, they really believed that they had a formula that could help this country until now.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
man ran with no desire to do anything other than what he's doing and making money to presidency. Because people do know that. And the numbers are growing from that. People are seeing it. It's a shame it had to go this way. Unfortunately, it ain't done yet. It just got to keep going. I don't see a change. I wish I did. You know, you know, I give him some credit for the thing over in Israel, and hopefully it holds. But this is not a long. How someone like he said this has never happened before where we've had a peacetime over here. Yes, it has. It's been broken so many times we forget. You
This
know.
isn't a peace deal. It's a ceasefire.
Hmm.
There's no there's nothing in there for a two-state solution, and these guys over there are not going to accept anything without a two-state solution. They might, while they regroup, they get their political prisoners back, they rearm them, they re-weaponize, they get their tunnels shored up, and they're coming again. It's just it's the facts of life. This is not a comprehensive peace deal. This is a ceasefire, and if you call it anything else, if there's not a two-state solution, then me and you've been around, Jack. We were around for the Jimmy Carter, the talks. We were around when Yitzhak Rabin was actually going to pull it off, and they assassinated him.
Yep.
And so we've seen this. Oh, and we've seen better men, bigger men, fail at this. And it just seems like it's all kind of a monetary thing now, and a business transaction. And that's not how these guys, these extremists, work. That's not their number one priority, is making money.
They don't care. You got guys over there. They're willing to die. They're going to throw themselves out. They don't. A lot of them just don't care.
Yeah.
They bought into another religious thing about all the virgins waiting for them.
Right.
And I can't believe the virgins are used up by now. I just can't believe they're all sitting there. And
there's none left here in Riverside, I know, that are over 21.
There you go. Last four we had here moved. But the thing is, they don't care about the money thing. And you're right, everything has become some type of a business transaction, and that's, I don't know. Where's going from there? Well, we kind of got away from the Nazis a little bit, but not really, because the Nazis, it was a control factor, and that's what it was, and the extermination and stuff. And I guess I don't even know what else to even say about it.
No, there's nothing else to say. Well, it's going to continue. We'll probably be talking about this again here soon. I don't know where we're heading. I hope everything's okay. I hope all you people out there are doing good, and you're employed, and your job's going good. That's all I could say.
Yeah. All I say is hang in there. I mean, I hope we get to a point where like people like our vice president and even some of the Democrats, when things like this happen, can say, neither side should have said any of that shit. No one should have done that, but we can't, because we're still choosing teams out there, and neither one of them's got a team I want to be on. So it's pretty sad. Pretty sad. Anyway, you guys like it? Subscribe, give us a comment. We answer. It's Jack and GT here from Fed Joints to Beer Joints. GT, I recognize the sign out there. Where are you at?
You know it. Yeah, I'm at the Brew Crew, and I am drinking a shot collar, West Coast IPA at this time.
Really?
Kind of early for me, but it's just like it's what I do now when we start talking. So, hey, thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. See you next week. Take care.